rough, and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock. So take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Terrific. Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. Tonight our guest is Abby Johnson. She has come out of the abortion industry, so to speak, and now has a ministry to women that are still there, helping them to leave that ministry. And she's going to talk to us about her conversion to Catholicism and coming out of the industry and helping others. So it'll be a great show, exciting show.
Yeah.
She's never been on Life on the Rock.
She never has.
No. We've interviewed her at Walk for Life and things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Good to see you, Doug.
You too, Father?
I thought last week we talked about Into the Breach, this letter of Bishop Olmsted to the Diocese of Phoenix, to men, to stir men.
Right.
And I thought for this show, because we're talking about family issues and the greatness of family life, talk about some of the sections from there relating to that.
Yeah.
So he says, he speaks about the greatness of what marriage is and its importance in a society. He says, through spousal love, men live out a strength that endures, a strength for which the world longs, and a strength that will stabilize a crumbling society. I know some men maybe miss the greatness of marriage and spousal love as a support, as the vital cell of society. You know, it's a cause that a man can give himself to that's so important. And he says, you know, that obviously marriage involves, and spousal love involves commitments and sacrifice. And he says, those who arrive at the judgment seat of God after this life without the scars of a sacrificing husband will, quote, hold their manhoods cheap whilst any speaks who fought with us. Quoting from Shakespeare, Henry V.
Yeah.
It's a great scene. I only know the movie version, but you know, he's rousing the troops for battle. He said, hey man, I'll hold his manhood cheap when we talk about this day that didn't fight with us.
Right, this feast of St. Crispin.
Right. So he's saying that, you know, the scars of a sacrificing husband that gives to his family, those are scars of glory.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of men, you know, later on in life can look back and the things that they fought for, the things they've spent their energy on. There's only so much time and energy we have, you know, to spend and to give. And so many men will spend that time and that energy on things such as their financial security. You know, that's my most important thing, my most important cause, my purpose in life, they say. Or recreation, entertainment, man cave, big screen TVs, nice cars, football team.
He talks about those toys.
He does. He gets into that a bit. You know, and when men spend their energy on this and they find that as their purpose in life, then they are clearly missing out. Now, a lot of guys, they've never been taught, trained, formed, shaped in any other way than to think that these things are the most important things. But when you've got issues like we're going to hear tonight with Abby, talking about life issues, things such as, you know, the marriage situation going on in our world right now, you know, the attack on marriage on all these different levels, the attack on life, you know, we men need to be really thinking more along the lines of what, you know, Bishop Olmsted writes here, to be spending our energy and our time and our fighting position on the things that really have purpose.
And he criticizes the sexual revolution, quote unquote, free love, you know, separating commitments from sex, and it's resulted in all this pain, hurt, loss, and really broken hearts. I think he says in there too that you're not, without sacrifice, you're not doing something great with your life, and that this revolution, sexual revolution, has wounded so many people. And he has a great paragraph here that I think is worth quoting, speaking about the greatness of marriage. He says, marriage in Christ is not merely a human endeavor. It is higher. It is a great mystery. The human desire, to quote St. Paul, the human desire for love is, in a way, a longing for infinite and eternal love. In the sacrament of marriage, human love is caught up in the infinite and eternal love of God. This is the glory, men. As a, you know, he's talking to men. Yeah, this is the glory. Called to marriage, you are called to be as Christ to your bride, because this love unites you and your spouse sacramentally with the infinite love that Christ has for each of you. Your sacramental marriage overcomes the limits of natural marriage and achieves the infinite and eternal character to which every love aspires. And I think that's appealing too to men because, we're kind of interested in power and achievement and stuff like that. Marriage is a sacrament, so God is present there. You receive grace in that sacrament. You see an outpouring of the Holy Spirit to elevate your love, your human love, to a divine love. That's quoting Vatican II. It's caught up in divine love. So that's catching the wave. That's that's doing something great with your life because you're loving as God loves.
Right. Yeah, and it's taken it to the level of really in the spiritual battle context, which I always have to take everything back to something regarding spiritual battle.
Right, of course.
Battle ready.
It's only been 7 minutes.
No, I've waited this long before I get into it. No, but yeah, we men on the outside, we may look, like we're going through life, with kind of going through the motions of things, and paying the bills and this and that. But really down deep inside, underneath, we need to be battle ready. Yeah, right there. But it's true. We men have to be spiritually prepared for the fight. And he talks about that by saying that our love gets caught up in the divine. That has that element of being spiritually prepared for that fight. Understanding that there is an attack on marriage. We men need to, as he says, his exhortation, step into the breach. We need to be ready to go. We need to be ready to be engaged in that battle. We need to be, again, battle ready. Yeah.
And hopefully I think that it speaks to men and inspires men. You want to give your life to something great, be part of something great, and it demands sacrifice, but that's the path to glory, to eternal life.
Men, don't spend your energy and your time on the things of this world first, all right? As it says in Colossians 3:2, seek the higher things, the things of heaven, not the things of this world. Let's be able to just fall before the throne of God when we die and have there be spiritual blood on our swords because we fought the good fight the way we're called to fight as men. Into the breach for the glory of God and the salvation of souls, beginning in our families and our vocation. You as a priest, me as a husband and father. Let's go.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Abby Johnson, so don't go away. Back in a moment. Hi, welcome back to Life on the Rock. Tonight our guest is Abby Johnson, big mover and shaker in the pro-life movement, is author of Unplanned, her journey out of working for Planned Parenthood into the pro-life movement. So good to have you.
Thank you.
Here on the
Thanks
show.
for having me. Yeah.
And now you have a new ministry, Then There Were None. But first, let's talk about your journey so far. Tell us about that.
Well, I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I was a clinic director at a facility in Texas and left in 2009 after witnessing a live ultrasound guided abortion procedure where I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life during that abortion. I realized while I was watching that there was this fight or flight response from this unborn baby. And that is something that is in all of us, humans. And I just thought, if there's humanity there, then there's a human being. And if there's a human being, then there has to be dignity and worth there and something worth fighting for. And I left in 2009 and just started speaking out against the abortion industry and really just started trying to expose what's taking place inside of these facilities across the country, and then trying to reach out to people who have worked in the industry or currently work in the industry and are wanting to leave.
Right. One thing that caught me about your book was the appeal for like a young woman in college. What does appeal to them to support Planned Parenthood?
Honestly, I grew up in a pro-life home, but we were not activists in the pro-life movement. So we didn't sit around and talk about abortion at the dinner table or anything like that. So when I went to college, I met a woman with Planned Parenthood. I didn't even know what Planned Parenthood was. I never been there, didn't know anything about it. And, this woman started telling me that Planned Parenthood provides services for low-income women so that they can receive health care. And she told me that, without Planned Parenthood, women would have nowhere else to go for health care if they were impoverished. And
let's talk about those issues. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know they're very
Yeah.
close to your heart. I mean, we're having a big discussion. We've had a discussion in this country about defunding Planned Parenthood. What about those things you just said? That is there nowhere else to go?
Well, that's probably the biggest myth that's out there that Planned Parenthood has done a really good job of perpetuating to the American public, is that without Planned Parenthood, low-income women have nowhere else to go for health care. And that is really just a blatant lie. There are over 10,000 federally qualified health centers in the United States that will see men, women, and children for comprehensive and primary health care. That does not include county health departments, rural public health systems, hospital health systems, and it also doesn't include the tens of thousands of private physicians who accept government subsidy programs like Medicaid. So we're talking about tens of thousands of providers for low-income women that can provide not limited gynecological care like Planned Parenthood, but comprehensive and primary care, compared to 650 Planned Parenthood facilities across the country.
Right. And what percentage, roughly, is Planned Parenthood's budget that's funded by the government? Is that like half?
About half. About half
So-
of their budget. Yeah, they're receiving over $500 million in federal tax money.
And then you'll hear on the talk shows, too, that only 3% of their budget goes to pay for abortion, acting like this. We do so much greater work outside
Right.
of that. Talk about those numbers here.
So a couple things. The 3% equals about 330,000 abortions every year. And I tell people, when people say, well, it's only 3%, it's only 3%. I don't care if it's 0.01%. If there's one baby that is being killed in the name of choice, in the name of convenience, then it's absolutely wrong. Doesn't matter if it's one, doesn't matter if it's 330,000. But that is the real number, 330,000. But 3% is not a real number for them. So Planned Parenthood has taken on this really creative sort of math. And so let's say a woman comes into a Planned Parenthood facility and she gets, let's say she gets an annual exam. She gets a pap smear, she gets 3 STD tests, and she gets 10 packs of birth control pills. That should be one visit with 14 separate procedure codes. But what Planned Parenthood does is they actually unbundle those services so that it looks like 14 separate visits. And then they do the opposite for their abortion numbers. So they'll have one procedure with many different procedure codes. So we actually don't know the real numbers. But also, we know that just based on raw data, that it looks like it's about, just based on their annual report, it looks like it's actually closer to about 12 to 15%. But then they're also, Planned Parenthood has never given us the number of unduplicated patients that come into their center so that we can divide out, the number of unduplicated patients compared to the 330,000 abortions. So we really don't know the real numbers. But I can tell you at my facility with my budget back in Texas, abortion accounted for about 40 to 45% of our services.
Wow. So that is the main moneymaker for them.
Sure. And Planned Parenthood is willing to be a loss leader in the family planning world. So they're willing to lose money on contraceptive services, on STD services, on well woman exams. They're willing to lose money on that because they know that they will gain 3 to 4 times that revenue in abortion services.
And that troubled you when you were working for Planned Parenthood, that you didn't feel like you were really presenting women with options, but you were trying to guide them into this decision of abortion.
Yeah, abortion is absolutely a product that Planned Parenthood is trying to sell. So we had quotas. We had a certain number of abortions that we had to sell to women in order to meet our budget. And that sort of flies in the face of what Planned Parenthood says they're about. Planned Parenthood says they are about preventing the need for abortion. They say they're about reducing the abortion numbers. But if that were true, then they wouldn't have quotas on the amount of abortions that have to be sold every month.
Right. Can you tell us about some of the harm done to women, maybe emotionally and physically, in this industry?
You know, women who come in to have abortions, not just at Planned Parenthood, but in the abortion industry in general, you know, they are not being given proper informed consent. My supervisor actually told me, you know, we don't want to get into the risks of abortion with these patients. We don't want to actually talk to them about what really takes place during the abortion, because we don't want to scare them out of having an abortion, which it just so flies in the face of what they say. They say that they are about being a women's health care provider, being pro-woman, yet they treat women like second-class citizens, as if we as women are not able to look at information presented to us, look at factual data, and make an informed decision for ourselves.
How great is the fear that Planned Parenthood has over the push for laws of informed consent type laws and such? I mean, that effort's been out there for a while, but how much do they fear that? Because then the knowledge is coming to the women.
Well, you know, one of the things they fear the most is ultrasound legislation, because the ultrasound exposes the lie of the abortion industry. So it's showing that there is a life there, that there is a child in the womb, that there is a heartbeat, and that ultrasound will create a maternal bond between the mother and her child, and that is terrifying for Planned Parenthood. That's terrifying for the abortion industry.
Because that's like the strongest human bond in nature.
Right. So, I mean,
like 85%, is that right?
Yeah, that's the statistic that we have. About 85% of women, if they see their child on an ultrasound screen, will choose life. I think what's very interesting, though, and this sort of goes to what you guys were talking about earlier with Bishop Olmsted's message, about 90% of men will fight for the life of their child if they see their child on an ultrasound screen. And that really talks to the nature, that really speaks to the nature that is inherently given to men by God, to be protectors, to be fighters, for their family, to be battle ready. That's right.
90%.
Yeah.
Wow. Right there, could have shown it. Amen. So, so true, because it's within our DNA,
right,
to protect those that we love and care for. And if we're kept in the dark, then we don't understand that. But when it's presented right there before us, and we know this is a child that's been given me my care. Hey, here we go.
Yeah, and it's such men have been, and that's one of the things actually, even with my own marriage with my husband, there was a lot of healing that had to take place in my marriage, because I had so greatly emasculated him through my work at Planned Parenthood.
You neutered him.
I did.
Yeah.
I did not give him the role that he was supposed to have, that was God given to him in our home. And so really, I mean, and my husband will tell you this as well, if it had not been for the Catholic Church, if it had not been for the Catholic Church's teaching on the role of men, the role of women, the sacrament of marriage, both of us have said, I don't know if our marriage would have made it, because we needed that sort of very intimate healing, so that I could give him his rightful place inside of our marriage.
Because there's a beautiful chemistry that God ordains between men and women that just flourishes, and the church has the information and the teaching on all of that. It's not even just fulfilling jobs. Some people reduce it to the role of he does this, she does that, but there's something about, I talk about my wife is like the blood in my veins, and you ladies are the heart, of course, and you pump the blood to the head of the home so we can go do what we need to do, and that chemistry is unspeakably beautiful.
Well, women are life givers and life bearers, and part of giving life is also giving that life to our husbands,
Right.
and to our families.
That's true. They nurture the husbands in a sense.
Yeah. And then we go and protect that life
Yeah.
when we're battle ready.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Abby Johnson, so don't go away. Back in a moment. All right, welcome back. And I wanted to follow up something you said during the break here about the role of men, that women are in the office, they're thinking about abortion, and they look towards the men. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I would always call the woman, and if she was there with her boyfriend or partner, I would always call both of them back to my office, and I would ask the woman, okay, are you sure about this decision? She always would say yes. And then I would look at the man and I would say, and what do you think about this? And their answer was always one of two things. Either, well, it's her body, so it's up to her, I don't have any say. Or, well, she's already made her decision, and so my opinion doesn't matter. And it was like I would watch these women's faces. They would be looking at their boyfriend or partner, sort of waiting for him to say, you know what, I don't think we need to do this. I sort of waiting for him to kind of come in and save the day, and to save her from this situation. But then he wouldn't. He would give one of those two answers, and you could almost see just the disappointment come over her face, like, I wanted him to save me from this situation, but he didn't.
Doesn't this kind of go back to the heart of so many women when you're little girls, and the stories, the fairy tales, so to speak, of the knight in shining armor riding in? I mean, there's something age old about the man riding in on the horse, jumps off the horse, back foul thing, I would offend you, ma'am, put you on the horse and ride you off to the castle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something intrinsic in there
Sure.
that girls dream about when they're little. That's a very real, practical application of that something in the heart. And men are created to defend and protect. I firmly believe that, and men have lost that. We haven't been trained and formed in that nearly enough. And I think that this is a perfect example of the gravity of the devastation of it when we fail in that role as protectors and defenders.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the abortion movement has silenced men, has emasculated men, has said, you are not to be the protectors of women. You are to basically give in to whatever they want to do with their body, whatever they want to do with your child. And that's what we were talking about earlier. We just recently adopted a baby, and we had to really jump through some hoops in order to adopt him, because you have to, in an adoption, you have to have the father, the biological father, sign over rights to his child. Yet, in abortion, the father has no rights.
Right.
He is not required to be consulted. He doesn't have to sign off on anything saying that, yes, I give her permission to take the life of my child. But yet, when we're talking about adoption, he absolutely has to sign off saying, yes, I allow someone else to raise my child.
Right. Yeah, if we say that women have this gift to nurture, what is the corresponding gift that the man has that he's called to give to the family? And if you mentioned, Bishop Olmsted mentioned it in his letter about protection and defense of life. And that's all necessary to make a stable home. And the woman's looking to the man that, are you going to do this for me, right? Are we going to do this together? And that is so important. Let's talk about your journey into Catholicism a little bit. Because I was struck on your website, you strongly give the church's defense of the church's teaching on natural family planning. Was that a hurdle for you to come into the church, or was it always something you believed in?
No, that was probably one of the biggest hurdles for me coming into the church. My husband, when we were in RCIA, he read Theology of the Body, and he just really just jumped right into it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, I know people that practice an FP. They've got 15 kids, you know? I mean, that is not for me. That is not what I want. You know, that was the joke. What do you call people that use an FP? Parents, you know? And so I just thought, oh
And you
my
have
gosh.
5 children.
We have 5 kids now. Yeah, so we're in it. But
Catholic rabbits.
I know, we are like rabbits, proud. But yeah, I mean, it was just, I just thought, what in the world? But I remember him coming to me and saying, Abby, if they are right about this, they must be right about everything else. I mean, he was just felt very strong about that. And
because I think it is so countercultural.
it is.
And it cost the church to hold this position. We're mocked, laughed at, thought
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
So it's a compelling thing to draw people to the
Right.
church. Yeah.
I remember I was sitting in Mass. I had just said, you know, well, I guess I'm just going to be a contracepting Catholic, because this is something I am never going to get on board on. I am never going to understand the teaching of the church on this. And one day, I should learn to never say never when it comes to godly things. But I was sitting in Mass, and there was a woman sitting in front of me, and she was holding a newborn baby. And at this point, you know, I really didn't think I wanted any more kids. I was happy with my one. And it was just like, I mean, God just like hit me with a 2x4 over the head. And I just thought, oh my gosh, the church is right. I mean, it just came to me so quickly, looking at this baby, looking at this new mom. And I thought, oh, I've got to stop contracepting. I've got to be open to life. This is something that we have to do in our marriage.
It was the beauty of the child, the beauty of life.
It was. It was the beauty of life. And just looking at this woman holding this baby, and her husband was there too, you know, and he had his arm around her, and they were both looking at this child. And I thought, what am I taking away from my husband? What am I removing from my marriage?
Right.
Because I have put this barrier in between myself and my husband. You know, we have separated the, you know, this intimate gift that we give each other from procreation. And I just thought, that is wrong. And I've got to open myself up to my husband. I can't say that I'm giving everything to my husband
Right.
if I am taking away my fertility from him.
Right. And you said your husband really kind of rose up to the spiritual head of the home on this issue, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He just, one day after RCIA, he
I like how you're grinning so much.
he did. It was great. It was the first time he'd
You're
ever
a
done
tough
that.
Texan woman, right?
Yeah, but he just said, listen, he said, I don't know where you are on this journey into the Catholic Church, but he said, I am joining the church. And he said, you can either join with me or not. But he said, this is important, and I'm going to become Catholic. And I just thought, whoa, that was the first time ever in our marriage that he had just really stood up and had taken that role in the home. And it was beautiful. I mean, at first it sort of made me mad, but then it was so, I just realized how beautiful that was. And then I realized how much healing had really taken place in our marriage, that he was ready to assume that role in our family.
Do you look back at a time like that and see that as just a real powerful moment of grace? That God's grace just boom and just pummeled that moment. And at the moment there's that, oh, whoa, wait a minute. And then, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
And then things just kind of fall into order.
Absolutely.
And you know, when you ladies affirm us men when we do things like that, that only elevates it more.
Yeah.
You know, first time I blessed my wife with holy water, and I did it in a very cowardly way. And the next morning she said, I had a funny dream last night. You were blessed in the apartment with holy water. I said, oh, yeah. And she said, I realized not only are you putting a roof over the head and food on the table, you take care of this marriage spiritually. You know, we were pregnant with our first child back then. You should have seen me then. That's right, baby. Yeah, you know, when you married me, you made the right choice. Because when you ladies do affirm those moments of spiritual leadership and grace, we just soar on that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's awesome that even now your look shows that you still recognize that.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
cool.
you know, it was interesting actually. Another thing sort of happened in our marriage recently. I had just sort of been kind of on my husband to join the Knights of Columbus. And I was just like, you know, you'd really like it if you do. I mean, I just think you would like it. And my husband's not a super sort of bro time social guy, you know, and so, but I think.
But does he like Tootsie Rolls? Because that works well with the nights.
Yeah, he does.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works.
And so I just thought, you know, I think you should really do this. And then I thought, I just kind of need to back off. You know, I don't want to really push him on it. And then, and our priest actually said to my husband, he said, you know what Catholic women think is really sexy about their husbands if they serve the church, if they join the Knights. and so it was great, but he did. And then, you know, I said, I don't know, there is something really beautiful about men who serve the church.
Yeah.
And man, he'd like to hear that.
Well, that's,
you know, and then he joined and he likes it now, you know.
that's the sacrament of marriage, is Christ laying down his life for the church. That's what's being imaged in marriage. So that makes sense. Let me ask you, you talk about the natural consequences of artificial contraception. What are some of those issues you talk about there?
Well, you know, I am not, of course, a proponent of any sort of contraception, and speak about that very often, very strong on that issue, and believe in natural family planning. You know, I believe that fertility should be a shared experience between a husband and a wife, and that's what's been taken away. It's one of the things that's been taken away because of contraception inside of marriages. But really, it just violates this idea of natural law, you know, separating sex from the act of procreation. That completely goes against natural law, it goes against God's law, it goes against the church. But then we can also look further down the line and see how that has also played into even the controversy around homosexuality, right? Why is homosexuality wrong? Well, one of the reasons is because you are taking away the life-giving act. You know, you are basically just using sex for pleasure and not using it in a procreative way, and that's a problem. And we look at other countries as well, you know, like when you violate natural law in that way, grave consequences occur.
And the disease aspect.
Right.
Talk about that, what the women might have to face using artificial contraception.
Well, you know, artificial contraception, hormonal contraception, is considered a group 1 carcinogen, so it's in the same category as arsenic. But yet women are putting this into our bodies every day. Doctors are not well educated on natural ways to heal the body. So when women have different issues, PCOS, endometriosis, whatever it may be, and they take these pills, it's actually not fixing the problem. It's not getting to the root of the problem. It's only putting a Band-Aid over essentially a bullet wound. And that's one of the beautiful things about natural family planning, is that we can actually get to the root of the problem. So aside from, you know, the wonderful benefits of NFP when it's used inside of a marriage, also just the physical effects of contraception are so damaging to the body. It's funny because, you know, we sort of live in this society where it's everything's organic, and, you know, we want to have free-range chicken and, you know, all of this stuff. But yet these same women are putting this artificial birth control into their body every day, and they don't even realize the damage it's doing. I mean, I know a woman who took the Depo-Provera shot, developed osteoporosis at age 26. I know women in their 20s who have had strokes. I know women in their 30s who I know women in their 20s who have developed breast cancer. And the only thing that they can link it to is the long-term use of, and the use of artificial birth control at a very young age, which we know that increases the risk for reproductive cancers.
And isn't it amazing also, when the information does get out, that men, husbands, fathers, or boyfriends, or what have you, I'm sorry, husbands primarily, would be okay with their wives or their girlfriends taking these drugs, which are carcinogens, as you say, cancer-causing, breast cancer and strokes and this sort of thing. When men find this out, do you find that men flip on their support of it, or are they still okay with the women of their lives taking these pills, knowing they can be so destructive?
It depends on the man. It depends on his formation. I mean, I know a lot of men who, my husband was one of them. I mean, he was very strong on it and just said, we should not be contracepting in our marriage. Number one, because it's against the church. Number two, because it's against God. Number three, because this is damaging to you.
Yeah, it's killing you.
This can kill you. Yeah. And I care about you and I love you. And I don't want you to put this in your body anymore.
And you've suffered some health effects.
I have, yeah. For the rest of my life, I will live with something called intracranial hypertension because of birth control that I was on. My husband and I, we dealt with infertility for a couple of years because of the birth control that I had taken in the past. So, there are lifelong effects. There are lifelong consequences to putting these artificial methods into your body. And there's a better way through natural family planning.
It's amazing. It's beautiful. The church is, of course, right on this issue. And you entered the church a few years ago.
Right, Easter of 2012. My husband and I came in together.
Mm-hmm. And you have a cute story too about being a young girl watching the network. Tell us.
Yeah,
about that.
my mom, she says that I was born Catholic. I was raised Southern Baptist, but I grew up in South Louisiana where really most everybody is Roman Catholic, and except for us and 10 other families where I grew up.
Where did you grow up?
Outside of Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And so we had. I remember doing this, actually. I remember my mom says I used to turn on EWTN and I would watch Mother Angelica. And I don't know, I guess I just thought she was really funny. And and then I would, every day when I would go watch her, I would go get a towel and put it on my head and pretend to be a nun. And so people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say, a nun. They're like, aren't you Baptist? So I
Trying
think
to start a new order.
Yeah. But even I remember growing up, just always sort of having this interest in all things Marian. And I remember being a kid and sort of saying, okay, well, we talk about Esther, we talk about Deborah, we talk about Ruth, we talk about Sarah, we talk about all these women in the Bible. But yet, we never talk about Mary, who is undoubtedly the most important woman, not just in biblical history, but history of all time. Yeah. But we don't talk about her. And so I sort of got this traditional Protestant answer, and so as I grew older, I really wanted to gain more knowledge about Mary.
Yeah. What are some of the things now that you appreciate about Catholicism?
Oh gosh. Well, Sunday school answer the Eucharist. But I do think just the way that the church upholds the beauty of women is something that was really attractive to me. And just, of course, apostolic succession was really something that's beautiful for me, just knowing that there's a history there of the church that can be tracked back to Christ. Right. And I think that's important. I think that's what a lot of Protestants are looking for, is that truth.
All right, we're going to take a short break. Be back with Abby Johnson, back in a moment. Welcome back. Abby, let's talk about your ministry, Then There Were None. What's the goal of that?
Sure. So we started, and Then There Were None, about 3 years ago. I thought surely after 40 years of fighting legal abortion that there had to be some sort of apostolate reaching out to these abortion clinic workers, reaching into the clinics, proactively reaching into the clinics, getting them out and getting them on a path to healing. But I was surprised to find out that there was not. And there have been local groups that had, helped workers if they had reached out, but nothing really on a national level. So, we started this ministry just thinking that it would not be very successful. I mean, honestly, because it's a hard sell. convincing abortion clinic workers to trust pro-lifers. But we thought, if we have 10 workers leave in a year, we thought that would just be sort of overwhelming success for us. And we've been at this for 3 years, and we have had over 190 abortion workers come through our ministry and find healing. And out of that, over 190, 6 of them have been abortionists who have permanently put down their abortion instruments and are now fighting to defend life.
And what do you find when you worked for Planned Parenthood and things, what is the characterizes, I mean, a lot of people are hurting, they're in that industry, or what's the typical personality?
We know that about 70% of people who work in the abortion industry have had abortions themselves. So we're dealing with a very wounded population of people. We're dealing with a very dehumanized population of people. So I think for many, many years, anytime there's a tragedy, people need to find someone to blame. And so, who's the easy target to blame for this tragedy in our country of abortion? Well, the clinic worker, right? And so I think for many years, the pro-life movement has sort of blamed abortion workers, blamed people in the industry. And because of that, we have, we accuse people in the abortion industry of dehumanizing the unborn, but yet the pro-life movement has done the same thing to the abortion worker. So what we're trying to do is sort of bring some of that humanity back into the worker and show people that, these workers, for us, it's all about mercy, compassion, grace, love, kindness. And it's working, and just trying to show people that these people that are in the industry, they are misguided, they're sinners, but they're worthy of redemption, and they're worthy of grace, and that we should love them. And if we do love them, that love can bring about conversion.
So if there is a clinic worker out there who would like to get out, they could contact you and you could help them, and what are some of the help that you offer? Sure.
So anybody can go to abortionworker.com and get information. If you are a sidewalk counselor, someone who goes out in front of the clinic, I really encourage you to go to our site. We have some printable materials people can print out and hand out to workers or mail into the clinics, just letting them know about our ministry. But we really feel like we are providing comprehensive support for abortion clinic workers who want to leave. So we do provide financial assistance, transitional assistance out of the industry so that they can be really actively looking for a job full time and not have to worry about, how are we going to pay the rent. We have legal help available. So if a worker comes out and says, gosh, I witnessed all these terrible things and I need legal protection, we have over 3,000 attorneys who have stepped forward and said, we will help these workers at no cost, whatever their needs may be. We have employment services. We're not an employment agency, but we have human resource staff that volunteer with us. They can write a resume from the ground up. They can help, tweak a resume if need be. They can help with interviewing skills. They can help them plug into different areas so that they can be better at finding different employment resources. We have emotional support. Every client that comes to us is assigned a client manager, and that's somebody that walks with them on this journey one-on-one. And we want it to be a lifelong journey. We want to journey with them for the rest of their life if they will allow us, because we know that healing will be a lifelong journey. We also provide all expense-paid healing retreats for abortion clinic workers. So similar to, something like Project Rachel, but this is specifically for the needs of an abortion clinic worker. And then of course, spiritual guidance. We don't really provide the spiritual guidance, but we want to plug them into a church. And I can tell you, the majority of workers who have come to us do identify as Catholic. And so we want to get them back into the sacraments. We want to get them into reconciliation, get them back into God's grace.
And you speak about how the heavy burden you felt was being a worker in that industry and the amount of women you affected or convinced to have an abortion or was part of that. Talk about your own healing or journey out of that burden.
You know, I've had 2 abortions myself, and while that's certainly, you know, something that's heavy to carry, really what was even more difficult for me was knowing that I had participated. I had been a part of probably over 20,000 abortions during my time with Planned Parenthood, and I just thought, gosh, how do you live with that? You know, how do you live with that sort of wrong? But I realized that, you know, I had to make a decision. I mean, I could either let that burden weigh me down and keep me silent, or I could take my past, I could take this mess that I had gotten myself into, and I could really use it to glorify God and hopefully help other people not make the same mistakes and decisions that I did. And you know, funny story, I remember one day I was watching that movie, that animated movie Kung Fu Panda with my daughter. And there's this wise turtle, I can't remember anybody's name, so there's this wise old turtle in it, right? And then there's this little mouse thing. And the turtle was dying, and the mouse said, but what, you know, gosh, what are we going to do without you? And he was really concerned about, you know, going on without this wise turtle. And the turtle looked at him and he said, do you know why today is called the present? Because it's a gift. And I thought, yeah, I mean, just right there in my living room watching this cartoon movie, you know, with my daughter, I just thought,
The wisdom of Kung Fu Panda.
exactly. And I just thought, you know what, yes.
And I think you hit upon something we forget, that no matter what our past is, God can redeem it and use it. That's what you just said, that you can use that, your experiences can be used to help other people. You've been there, you know the pain and stuff. And your own healing too is offering up that suffering of that burden, right? That was...
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I hear a lot of, you know, becoming Catholic, I didn't know what that meant when people said, oh, just offer it up, you know, and so people sort of say it as a joke, I think sometimes, you know, Catholics, oh, just offer it up, you know. But that was very real for me, you know, that burden, that suffering that I felt because of my past experiences. Learning the power of redemptive suffering really helped me move on and lessen the weight of that burden. You know, I mean, I tell people I am now to a point in my healing where I really can't say that I feel a lot of regret, because I feel like God has really taken that from me.
I think that's so true. Yeah, because God's using it, and I love the pro-life movement. Just hearing you talk, it's kind of a very feminine approach too. It's very practical. You all are doing something very real. You know, you just had that list of services you provide, and that's a great way to, you know, make up or whatever you want to say to help be part of the solution against this. You know, it's such a tremendous work. And the other theme I like too, just redemption, that if anyone is saved, it's by the wood of the cross. I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, whatever those sins are, if you're in heaven one day, it's because you've been forgiven.
Right.
Whether you have a lot of sins or, you know, whether the impact was small or great of your sins, Jesus has to forgive that. Now, you also speak about the importance of praying at clinics. We just have a few minutes left. Today's the March for Life in Washington, hopefully to energize people to pray, to do these kind of good works. Tell us about the prayer part.
You know, I wouldn't be here today sitting in front of you if it had not been for people outside of my facility praying, lovingly reaching out to me. You know, one of the things that I took away from the last Planned Parenthood conference I went to, it was in 2009, and I went into a breakout workshop called Anti-Choice Harassment. That's pro-lifers. And I walked away from that remembering one thing, and I'm so glad that I took this away. They did some analysis on no-show rates. So, you know, when a woman has an appointment for an abortion, but she just doesn't show up, they found that the no-show rate for that is about 20%. But what they said was that when there are people outside praying in front of these clinics, the no-show rate goes up to 75%.
Wow.
So a lot of times people go out there and they go, what? This is boring. I mean, I'm not doing anything. What am I doing? Is this really working? Yes, it is working. And I think what we're doing when we're out there is we are sort of an outward sign of their inward conscience. We're showing them that, yes, there is something morally objectionable about walking into this place to take the life of your unborn child. And we have to be there, because if we're not, there is no hope for them. I mean, once they walk into that clinic, they are walking into a place that is really hopeless and is very desperate and is very sad. And so we have to be that light and be Christ to them out on the sidewalk.
Well, thank you so much for your courageous witness that inspires us all, and not being afraid, to go and bear witness to Jesus in this movement. So, well, may our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace, and may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We see you next week on Life on the Rock.